Okay, let's get started on these coasters. I'm going to show you how to get them prepped. These have all been prepped already, except for the circle hasn't been drawn on this one. And I already drew the circle on it, but I'm going to go ahead and put the multi-purpose sealer on over that line. It's not going to hurt a thing at all. I'll put a little bit of this out of my plate here. Okay, and we're just going to brush on front, back, sides, and top. So all sides will get this. Now, this one, I don't know how well you can hear. It's a little rough. And this one is so smooth because I put the sealer on it and I lightly sanded it. The sealer will raise the grain so you can sand it a little bit, but the main purpose of it is to seal the wood so that your paint will stick to the wood and not soak down into it, so you're not putting a ton of coats on your surface. Hair in there. Doesn't seem to want to come out. So this will raise the grain of the wood quite a bit, and then you'll take this sanding pad, any kind of extremely fine sanding pad, and you're just going to lightly sand all the sides and the edges, and you will be able to tell a difference once you sand it. Okay, and then you can take a paper towel and just wipe off any excess dust from the sanding. Now, to get our circle on here, because I originally was going to do these on some round coasters, but I didn't have any round ones, so I still wanted to keep the circle, because I'm doing like circles within circles. So it's a fun little thing to do. So I've got this circle maker, and it comes a set of 2 like this, both sheets, at Michael's. I got these at Michael's. I imagine Hobby Lobby sells them as well. There's many circle cutters out there. I have another one that I use as well, but this one is perfect for this. So I'm using the size 3 1/4 inch circle, and I'm just centering it on this block of wood. If you want, you could take your T-square and draw a line this way and this way, because it has lines along here, so you can get it perfectly centered. And then I'm just going to take with a pencil and draw this circle in. Okay, so we've got our circle on there. I don't know how well you can see it in the glare, but it's on there. Okay, I've got it on all of them. This is the one that I just painted, so it's sealed, so it's not quite dry, so I'm going to let it dry, and we're going to get ready to start on these. Okay. We're going to start on these circles. Now on 2, we're going to paint the outside after we get the inside of these done. So 2 of these, the circles inside, are going to be painted with some blues and purples, and 2 of them, the insides, are going to be painted with some yellows and oranges and things. Okay? So let's do our blues and purples. So I want to start out by putting in I've got a 12 flat, and I'm just going to roughly put in some lavender inside this circle. And it's okay if you go outside the lines, because we're going to be painting the outside of this with black. So go up to your edge. Now I'm just going to dip a little corner into some ultramarine blue. Blend that into the sky. A little too wet, so I'm going to let that dry a little bit and put some purple in over here. I probably have to put 2 coats of this purple in first, and come back with the ultramarine blue. So we'll get our initial base coats on here. If I feel like my brush is dragging, the paint is not moving well, I go get just a tiny bit of water. Oh, got to the blue there. That's okay. I go get a tiny bit of water on my brush and kind of blend it in with the paint to thin the paint down. You want your coats to be smooth coats, so you want thinner coats. You don't want to have any ridges or anything in your paint. So I'm going to let those two start drying. I know they look terrible. Trust me, they will look fabulous when we're done. So I'm going into some saffron yellow here. Oh, this is the one that I sealed and I hadn't sanded it yet. So let me sand it very quickly. Light sanding. What was this one on? Okay, some saffron yellow. And this one. I'm just going to, base coat them in with saffron yellow. And we're going to come back, both of these other two are going to be the saffron yellow. So we're going to get that done. And then we're going to come back and add some stuff into these colors. Okay, I've got all the initial base coat on. Now, if you feel like painting that it's still raised up some of the grain, then just very lightly sand over your base coat. So you want to have smooth coats and a smooth surface. No ridges. Alright, I'm going to take the purple ones out for a moment. And we're going to work on the yellow ones. And I'm going to switch over to a 10 filbert. All my brushes, but my round brushes, will be low Cornell brushes, which you can find on my website, as well as these coasters. But you can use these designs on anything. I originally was going to put it on a tissue box. If you have round coasters, you know, you'll probably have to enlarge the pattern a little bit for some round coasters, but you can use it on just about anything. So now we're going to start by making this look a little more like a moon, I guess I should say. So I'm going to, first off, I'm going to lightly dampen this circle. And I want it to have that orange glow of the moon. You could switch this up and make it have be the grays and the blues of, you know, of a night moon. But I kind of wanted the Halloween colors. So I've got Tangelo orange on my filbert brush here, mixed with water so it's thinned down. I'm just going along the outer edge here. Now I dampened this so I'm able to go farther with the paint and move it a little bit more because I dampened this circle with some water. Now I want to take my mop brush and mop on that inside edge. I'm just kind of tapping and pulling it towards the center to blend it a little bit. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of glow on that moon now. I'm going to do this one over here. Water in my brush. I have to dampen my circle first. You don't want it sopping wet with water, but you want it to, you want the paint to be able to move and not dry too quickly for you. got just a tiny bit too much water, so I'm going to get just a little bit more paint. Gently go around that circle. Now we're going to mop on the inside edge, kind of pressing down and pulling it towards the center just a little bit. You don't want to be grabbing a lot of that paint because you'll just remove it. But you need that inside edge to be softened. If you feel like it's removing too much paint, go a little bit softer on the brush, on the pouncing. Just very gently. If you find that you're removing too much of the paint, then you're just going to have to let it dry and start all over. Now, to clean your mop brush, you go to a damp place. You use your mop brush dry. Go to a damp place on your paper towel and clean the paint out of it. Okay, then you just go to a dry spot and dry it off. Now it's good to go. Okay, mop brushes, you can find them in black and white bristles. This is a Maxine's mop, Low Cornell, which I sell on my website. And I like the white ones because I can see better when they're dirty to clean them. You should clean them after each use so that you're not transferring paint onto your project. But I just like the white ones because I can see it better. Okay, so you see where we're starting to create a little bit of glow in that moon. We want to keep the center light. We're going to come back and add some lighter colors in there, which I think we will do that right now. Let's see what brush I want to use here. Oh, goodness, I can't get it out. Okay, this is a 3/8 inch Royal Crafter's Choice brush. I bought mine at Patricia Rawlinson's website, which is creativeartslifestyle.com. My website is lonnastrokeofart.com. So we're going to use this brush dry. So you need a dry paper towel. Your dry, it's a very stiff brush, not as stiff as a fabric brush, but more like a stencil brush. But these bristles are packed in here so compact and so tight, which is what I like about this. Okay, so I'm going to dip into Cad Yellow. So I've got it on my brush. I'm going to work it into my brush just a little bit. Now, there are two ways that you can dry rub or dry brush. You can keep working this paint until it's up in your brush. But the way that I like to do it is I like to go to my paper towel and rub out the majority of the paint. I can go right back there to that really wet spot and load again if I need to. Now I'm going to come here and with very light pressure, I'm going to start, because this is a round object I'm painting, I'm going to start with light pressure and go in circular motion and more pressure. Okay, I'm going to load some paint right here. Very light pressure. You probably can't see the Cad Yellow on here too much yet. It's not too much lighter than the saffron, so I'm going to dip into it again, load my brush up, remove excess paint, go right here in the center again, and work it out in a big circle, blending and gently rubbing. You can give more pressure as you can tell how much paint is in your brush. Now I'm going to dip into some butter. Just dirty brush right into that. And blend a little bit with that Cad Yellow. So I want to make sure I start with light pressure because I don't know how bright this is going to be and I don't want it overtaking. But I want the bright place to be right here in the middle of this moon. Okay, now you can see it's starting to definitely get brighter. Now as you layer with each color, I'm going to dip into the butter again because it was mixed with the cad yellow there, so this will be more of the straight color of just butter. With each layer of highlighting or shading, you want to get smaller so that you're not going out as far as you were with the first one. Now I'm going to dip into some, what I got, warm white here. I'm going to put this in the very center. I'm kind of pouncing it and very gently going in circular motions. Okay, I'm going to dip into warm white again because that was blended with the butter a little bit. Okay, just tapping. Get the right spot right here in the center. Okay, you see how we're building that? Looking pretty good. I want to come back with a float around the outside with some cad red, and I'm going to use a 12 curved flat, and I'll show you how I load for floating. First thing I do is I put water spots. Just mist some water on the edge of my palette. So when I need water, I will pick it up on the curved edge of this brush. Just go over here and pick up a couple of drops. Sometimes I will need paint over the whole brush, so I will just pick it up like that. I will dip into my paint, which when I load, I usually load right next to the paint that I'm loading. I've got a lot of water in my brush, so I'm just going to go lay it on my paper towel, let the excess water come out, and I'll start loading right here again. I want water in my brush, I just didn't want that much water. So I'm just going back and forth in a V, giving some pressure. My paint's getting a little dry there. I think I will pick up some water on the paint side, just a little drop, because I want my paint to move when I go to paint with it. So I've got a nice soft little color right there. And how it is on your palette right there is how it will paint for you. So I want to put this all around the outside edge. I just go right back to that place where I was loading and pick up paint. I have to get more paint, then I try to, if that spot that I originally was loading in is not dry, I will load and work it into my brush right there. Getting a little dry. You can pre-wet the outside edge of this like we did for the orange. Okay, I'm going to take my mop brush and very gently go around that. I think I want to bring those colors out a little bit, so I'm going to dry this very quickly. I'll find a little portable fan here. Clean my mop brush while I'm drying this. Okay, I'm going to get another little scruffy brush, and I'm going to dip into, let's see, how do I want to start this? I think I'm going to work from the center out. So I'm going to get some, actually I can use the same brush since I'm starting with yellow, my original brush. So I'm going to dip into some saffron yellow. Do do it a couple times because I want to work that warm white out of my brush. Okay, and I'm going to go around where I put my highlight and add some of this color, not too much, just a little. Now I'm going to dip into Tangelo Orange, and that will blend, and it looks very chalky, so I'm going to dip again because I don't want my orange to be chalky looking. Okay, that looks much better. And we're going to go out here. Just gently bring that in a little bit. And now our final color will be that color we just shaded, which is Cad Red. Working it in, getting it more blended with that Tangelo Orange. Now we just want to put this on the outside edge. Now remember, you don't have to worry about going outside your circle because we'll be coming back and painting that. I think I'm going to have to add just a little bit more yellow into this. A little bit more yellow on my palette here. Both my yellows, saffron yellow and cad yellow. I just dipped into both of them. I'm trying to get that orange kind of worked out of my brush. I'll put a little bit of this yellow back in here. A little bit too orangey. I want it to be orange, but not quite that much. So I'm just going to kind of walk that into the center. Okay, I think we've got a nice little glow in our moon right there. Okay, so we're going to do this one the exact same way. Okay, we've got our moons on these done. So I'm going to set them aside and we're going to go to our purple circles. Now these circles are going to be the night sky. So we want to take our filbert brush and I'm going to again dampen this. And this time, instead of going around the circle, we want to streak through. So I'm dipping into my ultramarine blue. I'm kind of working it into my very wet brush. I think I'll get a little bit more than that. I don't want it to fade down in there. Now I'm just going to start going back and forth, making horizontal lines. I'm going to go out past my circle because I don't want my lines to stop too abruptly. Okay, I'll just go all the way down. I'm not really sure where my horizon line will be, so we'll just bring it down a little bit further. Trying to get that where it's not quite a glare for you. I'm getting the night sky look there. So you can see. Okay, I'm going to pick up some lavender, which is what we basted in, and some warm white, and blend them on my dirty brush here. And I'm going to streak some of that in here. This will kind of look like some clouds in the sky. Just have paint on that one edge of my brush. Okay, I'm getting a Nice little night sky there. Okay, I'm going to take my number 12 curved flat. I'm going to load it with ultramarine blue for floating, just like I showed you a while ago, where you get water drops if you need them. You're just on the toe of the brush, and you're just working that paint right in to the brush. Okay. We're going to float around the outside of this. It's a pretty wet float, quite a bit of water in my brush. And I've got two different night patterns that I'm going to be doing. So I need to figure out where my horizon lines are going to be. Okay, my paint wasn't quite dry right there. So I'm going to have to go in and streak some clouds back in there. I'll let that dry before I do that. I should have dried it with the fan before I put that float on the outside. So let me get my filbert brush back. A little bit of ultramarine blue. Now, how you tell if it's dry is it's no longer cool to the touch. That's okay. It kind of needed a little bit more of that blue anyway. Alright, that's looking pretty good there. Okay, I've got two different night skies. Let me try this. Okay, so I need a horizon line. So I'm going to take my chalk pencil. Now you can use your pattern and just put it up there and trace a line on there. So now the bottom of this I want to fill in with all ultramarine blue. So everything down here. Will be ultramarine blue. Outside my circle line, not a big deal. We will come back at the very end and redraw our circle with our chalk pencil. We'll be painting the outside around the circle in with black. So for now, you can be as messy as you need to be with that circle. Okay, so I'm going to go get the other one done to this point, and then we'll start adding detail on these. Okay, we've got all of our circles base coated, and they're still in their very, very ugly stage. So this one with the straight horizon line, we're going to apply this pattern to. Okay, so I'm going to cut a little hole up here if I can. Some scissors here. Cut one on both sides. I want to be able to hold this pattern in place. And slide my graphite underneath it. So I'm just going to take a couple of pieces of tape, stick on there. Okay, now for the moon, I'm going to need a circle, and I want a really nice circle. using white graphite paper here. So I'm going to go back to my circle template. And I believe this is the one I used, and it is 1 3/4 inch. I'm just going to take my stylus, go around that. So I've got my circle for my moon on there. And any of the other ones that have a circle on it, like the witch one that goes on here, we're going to do the circle first, and we're going to come back and add the witch later. So we want the circle in, you know, some basic places for trees. Already lost the pattern. And then these other two, this one goes here. I'll have to find my other pattern because I have no idea where it disappeared to. Alright, so I'm going to get the basic shapes. I don't really need the detail stuff yet. I mean, you can put the where the windows go, but you don't need the crossbars and stuff like that in there yet. We're going to come back and add that stuff later. So let's get our basic lines of our patterns transferred on. Okay, I'm putting a circle on this one, and when I draw it in, I'm just going right over the witch, because we're going to add the witch back in later. So we've just got our circle there. And then we just kind of need some placement for trees. We don't have to have all the limbs put on there. Okay. And the bats will add when we add the witch. Okay, so we've got our basic lines on here. With the orange ones, I had to use the gray graphite paper, and then the white graphite paper up here. Okay, so let me get my palette ready, and we're going to get busy painting these. Alright, we've got all of our basic patterns on. So I am going to start on this one here. So let me zoom you in. This will be a fairly easy one to do. So we're going to start by painting the pumpkin soft black. So let's see, I'm going to use a smaller filbert brush. I've got, what do I have here? A number 6. So I think we'll work on these maybe individually. We'll see how the paint goes. If I need to jump from coaster to coaster, I'm going to try and just work through one coaster at a time. So we want to go around our teeth, obviously. And our eyes. You can make a different looking face on yours if you prefer. We want to keep our coat smooth. If our paint looks like it's thick and leaving ridges, then add some water to it and thin it down. Okay, now I'm going to adjust this on here. I will adjust it on your pattern, but I want this to come up like this. Sometimes while I'm designing, I make changes and adjustments, but I always make sure when you get your pattern that it is what I painted. Okay, first coats never look good, so don't worry about that. We're still in our ugly stages here. Thinking, oh, we're painting over all that orange that we just painted. Yes, we are, because we needed that background, and we needed the detail all the way around. This is why when I paint, I like to do the things in the background, put them on, and then come back and add pattern lines and details as I need to finish out the project. But if I get all my pattern traced on there to begin with, then I'm trying to paint around something, which is what I used to do when I first started painting. I used to put the whole pattern on there, and then it was trying to paint around these little details. Okay, I'm going to switch over to a small round for the stem. I can get it out of my holder here. This is a 3. Yeah, I think I'll stick with the 3 round. My round brushes are Winsor & Newton brushes. I do not sell these on my website, but hope to very soon. So I want this stem to kind of have a tear almost down in it. And you can make your stem however you want. I mean, he's a scary little pumpkin. We don't need him to be too neat. So you see, we've already got our eyes in there, although we're going to come back and add more to those. I'm going to take, let's see if I can get it to show up with my white graphite pencil. I may not be able to. But we're going to create some, nope, you won't be able to see that, so let me go with a regular pencil. I'll just try and make my lines kind of light. I can erase them back. So we need to give the depth here. So I'm just freehanding some inside lines. Okay, we'll do it on the eyes as well. I don't want it to be quite as wide on the top as we have it on the bottom. I tell you what, I like to just put it on the sides. I'm not liking that line on the bottom. We're just going to come on the sides there where we can see that part of the cut edges. Okay, let's go get our second coat of soft black on our pumpkin. Very quick, very easy pumpkin to paint, this one here. We're going to be adding moon glow highlights on this, so it's not going to be just a black pumpkin. You have to have some reflections on here, and smooth your coats out. Make sure you don't get any ridges. Smooth, smooth coats. And sometimes, depending on the paint and the thickness of the texture of the paint when it comes out the bottle, I guess I should say, you might have to put a third coat on. But that's okay. I would rather that you put, you know, as many coats as you needed to on here to make it smooth and nice looking, as opposed to having ridges on your project, because that makes it look less attractive and just not as well done. Need to straighten that up a little bit. It's not quite didn't want to come over that far. So I just took a damp brush. I'm just erasing that away because it's very wet paint, so it comes off very easily. Just down up here. I just went ahead and went up on to the ledge of this brush and filled that in right there. Okay, he's looking pretty good, if I do say so myself. Alright, we're going to keep that small round, and we're going to go to Tangelo Orange. No, that's going to be too bright. Let's go Burnt Orange. Burnt Orange on the eyes. And I'm going to put some Tangelo out, just in case that Burnt Orange is too dark. Now, I'm creating this design as I show it to you on the video, so I'm not 100% on my colors sometimes, so I'm going to put out all the colors that I used within the moon back there. So I'll have cad red and saffron yellow and butter and cad yellow and warm white. I've got all the colors out. Alright, we're going to start by painting this here. And I'm really not 100% sure I like it just like that, so we might bring a little bit coming out of that corner down like that. So I'm going to try it with the burnt orange. This might be way too dark. Yep, way too dark. So let me take that off. And let's go with the Tangelo orange. Okay, we're just painting, like coloring in the lines here. Lines that I drew in there need to be erased. So I'm going to try not to paint over them, because once I paint over them, they're not going to come off. They'll be set in the piece. If I get over into my soft black, I'm not going to worry about it, because it's a solid color right now, so we can come back and lighten that up. Okay, let's go to a small curved flat, a number 6. Wake up the brush. You got to wake your brushes up before you paint with them, so you've got to get them full of water and then get the excess water out of them. Okay, I want to shade this Tangelo orange around this edge. Well, down here I need to lighten that up down there before I can shade it. So let's go with our small round and take some, I'm going to mix some saffron and some cad yellow. So I'm just going to dip into the saffron, dip into the cad yellow, and mix them right there. I think I might do 2 cad yellows. 2 cad yellows to 1 saffron. We want to fill in here, because we need to lighten all this up in here. I'm not going to worry about getting in my soft black, so I can go back and touch that up. Okay, it's not very bright yet. I want it to be bright like that. So let me dry that. And we'll take the cad yellow and mix a little bit of butter in with it. So we'll get a pale yellow. Fill this in. It's a little sloppy right there. I will fix all my mistakes. You can see we're not all perfect painters all the time. Okay, that looks much better, that brighter color in there. Okay, I'm going to let that dry for a minute. And I'm going to get another little scruffy brush. I washed my other ones out, so they are wet. So you can't use them wet. So I'm going to get a new one of these 3/8 inch dome brushes. Okay, we want to start putting some highlights on here, and you could actually go with a smaller brush. Let's see, I might go with a smaller one, some that you can buy on my website. These are the Lowell Cornell Crescent stencil brushes. They're not necessarily stencil brushes, but they're little stiff bristled brushes. So I'm going to go, this one's getting a little worn looking, but it still will work just fine. This one is a 3/8 inch. Okay, I'll get my dry paper towel. We'll be doing this the same way that we did it earlier. Get on camera here. Okay, so I want to start with some orange. I'm going to go into some Tangelo orange. Just got it on my brush there. Work it out. Now I'm sure I'll have to do this a few times to even see it on this color here. Oh, that was way too wet. You see what it just did? I just dug a hole right in that because my paint was way too wet. So I'm going to just wash it off. I dampened it. Now I'm taking a white eraser and very gently erasing it. Okay, let me try it on this side. We want orange glow up here. Starting to see a little bit of the orange on there, so let's go get some more. This will take a little bit of work. Make sure that's dry before I go back over there. I start with very gentle pressure. Tangelo orange. Okay, it's not going to be quite bright enough. So I'm going to pick a new color. I'm going to pick pumpkin. See how that's going to work. We want that orange in there, but we don't want, I don't think that's going to be orangey enough. Go to my smaller brush. 1/4 inch. Alright, I'm going to take some tangerine and some pumpkin and mix it together. Just like I did the yellow, I just picked up a little dot of each. I'm mixing it right there on my brush. Empty out my brush. There I go, I'm digging a hole in it again. I might have to glaze over that with some cad red, I bet, because it's just not bringing that orange out like I want it to bring it. And we don't really want any down there. So glue isn't going to reach that far. Pick up a little bit more of that mix. And then right here. More. I need to be able to see that orange, so I'm going to tap it on so it's a little bit stronger. Okay, I'm going to come back and clean those teeth up. They don't look the best. Okay, we'll put a little bit of this up here on the stem. I don't want it to get out into the light color, so if I do that, I'm going to keep a damp brush handy and just go whisk that paint right away. If you do it immediately, you can get it right off. Okay? Okay, let me go into a little bit of Cad Red. Work that into the paint that's already in the brush. Put some of this on here. I'm just tapping now instead of rubbing, in case my paint isn't quite dry that I just put on there. I don't want to dig a hole in it. Okay. Now I want to switch colors. I'm going to go into some saffron. Just going to let that blend in with that orange on my brush a little bit. I'm going to put some of this on here. More. It's not quite showing up. Just tap that on there. Giving a little bit more pressure because I don't have a whole lot of paint left in that brush. These little brushes don't hold as much paint as those bigger ones. Just a little bit up here. We can float along that edge as well. We will come back and float this a little bit. Okay, let me go into some Cad Yellow. It's a little bit brighter. I'm going to do that a couple times because I want to get that orange out of my brush. Much better. I'm liking that quite a bit more. Okay, let's see where we need to float some color. Let's go with some butter. I'm going to go back into the eyes and let that paint on the outside dry a little bit. Except I want to put a little bit across here. Okay, so we want the brightest area to be down here. Floating just a little bit in the corner of the eye. Just take the toe of the brush and push it down in there, and then just kind of tap it out a little bit there. Okay, and we'll take this color and we'll do it down here in the mouth, down here. Got too much paint on my brush there. Wipe it off. Into some Cad Yellow. Just dirty brush it right there on my brush. Just putting a little bit on the toe there. Just kind of working it in. A little bit more of that butter needs to be down here. take that butter. Actually, I think I'll go mix it with a little bit of cad yellow in the butter. Need to highlight. That might be just a little bit too highlighted. I want to get right on that, right on this cut edge here. So I just went and picked up wiped my brush off and went and picked up just cad yellow. We'll just start with that color. I'll touch up my black there. I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, I might put a little bit of this cad yellow up here. A little reflective light up there. He's looking pretty good. Okay, let's go into some of the burnt orange. And we are going to put this down here. The darkest areas. I had too much water in my brush, so I just touched my finger back. Right there. And over here. I think inside edge here. Oops. Paint on the wrong side of my brush there. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of cad yellow and butter. Mix those together. Just a little bit of each. Just kind of blend them. Just highlighting on this bottom. Down here. Take a little bit of that same mix. I'm going to be able to straighten them teeth up the way I want to straighten them. Let's see what we need here. We need a little bit of this on the outside edge. On this outside edge, I'm kind of staying up on the toe, just kind of almost lining that right there. Now I'm going to dip into a little bit of warm white. I'm just dirty brushing with that butter and cad yellow that's on my brush, so I'm just going to dip into some warm white. Just one more step brighter. A bit brighter over here. Looking pretty pretty good. Let's, I want to float some Tangelo orange and cad red. I'm just going to mix that on my brush. Now you're going to have water in your brush this time. So I want to put some of this, I want to darken this orange in here. It's Tangelo orange and cad red. Cad red has a little bit of an orange tint to it, so it's perfect for a fall color. Let's put a little bit of this in here, and a little bit on the outer edge out here. Just soften it with my finger when I'm doing that. It's just, I need some soft black back in there because it's not quite. Go ahead and touch up with my soft black any place that I feel needs touched up. Like underneath the eyes here, might need a little bit. I think I'm going to get some lamp black out. Get my number 10 curved flat. Wrong brush. Okay, number 10 curved flat. And we are going to add some darker shadows in here. Here. Down here. Pretty much all along this bottom here we want it to be a little bit darker. Creating some good shadows in here now. Definitely don't want to get this color in your background because it will not come out as easily out of that orange. Just taking my finger and softening that. Some in there, don't really want it in there. On the toe here, kind of just lining that edge right there. I'll just kind of blend it out with my finger. Let's create a little shadow up in here. Soften it out with my finger there. We'll bring it on up over this way. Okay, I'm going to go to my 6th curved flat because I want to get in on the top of this one tooth. like I said, you can make your mouth any design, or your details, your eyes and your mouth, any design that you would like. You're just basically going to go around in the same places with these colors. Okay, I want to add some more yellow. I'll put a tiny touch of butter in with it. I'm going back to my old scruffy brush, working that in, cleaning it out. Tap a little bit brighter in here, and I think we're going to float some brighter colors. Get some cad yellow out. Oh, he is looking good. He is looking good. Okay, we're going to float this yellow. This is cad yellow. On that outside edge there. Put some here. This will be more reflective light here. And a really bright spot right here. Back in the eye here. I feel like I've lost some of that yellow in there. Down here. We want it to be bright, but we need that yellow glow in there as well. Oops. Okay, I need to let that first floaty in there dry. So I'm going to go back to my Tangelo orange. I want to darken this in here. So I'm just going over this float again right here. I don't have a whole lot of paint on my brush. It's very thin down, almost washy. A lot of water, not very much paint. Tad bit more paint. Need it just a little bit darker. Alright, back into our cad yellow. I'm going to intensify this highlight. This one. And down here. And we'll put a little bit more of this glow on our pumpkin. Cad yellow is a pretty transparent color, so it requires a little bit more layering than some of the others. Okay, I just want to put a little bit more orange with some cad red back on the pumpkin. Oops, outside the line. We don't want to do that. damp brush, clean it up. Oh, I got paint on my finger and I'm transferring it to my project. Not good. Touch up under this eye here. And a little bit of black in there. I really like to soften back with my finger because I feel like I can get a much softer gradation of color in there when I use my finger. Okay, I think he looks pretty good. Now we just want to add a few bats in here. And the background will be painted black. So I'm going to draw a few. You can make your bats as detailed as you want. I'm going to make them fairly simple for the purpose of just getting this done. So basically just kind of like some M's. I'm just going to take that round brush that I'm using a 3 round. You could go down to a 1 round or even a liner brush. If you go down to a liner brush, you definitely need to thin your paint down to inky consistency. And you can give it a little head. And give it some little bat ears if you want. You can get as much detail on your little bats as you want. Body in here, some little ears. Using this round brush, I don't want my lines to get too thick, so I'm staying up on the tip of this brush very much. Okay, and there's some bats flying around in the background. So we've got one ornament completed. Okay, I've got my edges all painted black around it. So now I am floating a little bit of black on the very edge, and this is just a washy little float of black to kind of bring the moon and the sky together. Softening that with a mop brush, just going right on the paint so I can remove any extra that I might need. I think that brings them together very nicely. Now when you paint around it, just carefully go around it. I used my angle brush so that I could get the pointed edge, the toe of it right against that, and just follow it. Just take it as slow as you need to and follow it. Paint the edges as well, and we're going to come around on the back about 1/4 of an inch. We're going to put cork on the back of this, but I want the back to stay plain so that the cork will stick to the wood well when we glue it on. So there we've got our first coaster completed. Alright, we're going to get started on this one. So we're going to take some lamp black and warm white. Come out of the bottle. Okay, and we're going to mix this paint I'm going to take a tiny little dot of paint on the tip of my palette knife there, and I'm just going to mix that in with the white. I want to create a gray color. I want it just a tiny bit darker than that. Not a whole lot, so you see I don't have very much paint. It doesn't take very much black at all. Okay, so we've got just a really nice light gray. Now I could put another gray color on the palette list, on the list, but if you don't have to go out and get another color and you can just mix one that's similar to it, this is very similar to Gray Sky. So if you prefer to use Gray Sky or a Dove Gray, you can certainly do that. It's probably actually a little closer to Dove Gray than Gray Sky. So, alright, let's start by painting in the moon here. We're going to paint it in with this gray color. Now this time we definitely want to keep our circle a very good circle because we don't want our moon shaped funny. So the filbert brush is a good brush to do that because it's rounded at the tip and you don't have to worry about bristles going out past the lines like with a flat brush. You don't get those sharp start and stops like you do with flat brushes or angle brushes, or even the curved flats could give you that. Because this moon is the main focal point, it's very important to keep the shape. So take your time and get that circle really nicely. If you have some green stretchy tape, you could tape around it. You want to go right up to your line. You do not want to go past it. See, I'm taking my time. I wasn't quite up to the line over here yet. I don't want to go past it. Remember to breathe. Okay. We're going to let that dry, and we'll come back to it. Actually, I think I'm going to dry it so I can get... It's actually got some modeling lights and darks in it right now, which I really like. You want your moon to look like that. So if your first coat comes out like that, I would just say go ahead and leave it. I'm going to put a little tiny bit of ultramarine blue. Just going to take it, if I can get a tiny little drop. I have just the tiniest amount of paint on my brush. And I want to just kind of put this in here, kind of touch it back with my finger. I just want to give it some look of a moon. I mean, we're going to put a face in this moon, so we're not going to see tons of the moon, but we still want to see it. This is going to be kind of a scary moon, so we don't have to be too super detailed with what it looks like inside. But you want kind of a mottled look like that, where you can see some different colors. I think I will add just a tiny bit of the same thing, doing it with warm white. Get me a dry paper towel here. My paper towel is so sopping wet there. So just the same thing, just a little bit, tiny little bit of paint. Maybe just a tad bit more. And we'll put some white in here. Just kind of tap it around. I'm going to take my finger, and with my finger I'm softening it back and kind of mushing it. Get a little bit of mottled look in that moon. I could put some more blue in there if I wanted. Okay, I think I want to shade the outside of the moon with a very thin wash of ultramarine blue. Actually, no, I think I'm going to use a little black. I had too much on my brush, so I went and wiped it on my paper towel. And I'm going to mix some blue in there with that. But I want this to be a thin wash. See how it's almost like a dirty blue there? Because that ultramarine blue is pretty white. And you see, pretty bright. And you see I've got a lot of water in my brush. Because I want this to stay really thin, really almost sheer. It's just going to be a tint of color around the outer edge. So I don't want it to be a very stark line. It's just, and actually I should have waited to do this because I plan on putting a glow around this moon. So I will have to come back and repeat this. Okay, I'm going right in what I painted to soften it, you know, that way I can remove anything if it's too thick. But I've got the moon, great big, which is what I want, but I wanted a glow around this moon. So I'm going to take a 1/4 inch crescent brush, which feels like I let the paint dry in this one. So I don't know how well it's going to do. So I'm taking warm white, getting the paint out, and I just want to gently, very gently, start rubbing around this moon. I'm giving just the gentlest of pressure here because I don't want it to make it too dark too quick, too bright too quick. So now I can tell how much paint is in the brush and how much is coming off. So I'm going to rub just a little bit harder. Bring my glow out. Okay, we got a little glow from that moon. And that didn't cover up too much of our shading, so around the outside edge. So I'm going to leave it right there. Okay, I've got a 10-0 liner here. In this gray mix that I made, this light gray mix, I'm now going to add a little bit more black into some of it. So I've got my 10-0 liner here, and I'm just going to mix a little bit here. This is for the trees, the background trees. We won't need a lot. So now I'm dipping into water. I'm bringing the water over here. You can see it on my brush there. And I'm adding it to this so I can thin it down. You need it inky consistency when you're using a liner brush. So now I've got like a medium gray tone there. So I'm going to wash my brush out, dry it on the paper towel. And then I'm going to load my brush. Now when I'm loading my liner, I get it in there, get it full of paint, and then I twist it and pull it out onto the tip so I get a nice tip there. Now I don't know how well you can see, I have all that water on my ferrule right there. I don't want that water on my ferrule because it could run down onto my bristles while I'm painting and cause a huge mess while I'm painting. So I'm just going to get that excess water off of there. Okay, we're using this to make the background trees. So your trees can be a little bit more water in the paint there, because it should just flow right off of the brush very easily. So I want this tree to be a little bit thicker at the base, so I'm just going to add another line beside it, bring them together. Let's make some stems, branches and things off of this tree. So stay up on the very, very tip of the brush when you want to make your little branches. And you can put as many branches on your tree as you want. Okay, and we're going to have this one is closer down here by the house. And actually, I think I'll wait to paint that one because I want to add a little bit more white to it. And they can come over on top of this other tree. Branches don't have to be just confined to that tree. Here. This is how we create some of our little depth in here. This tree can come up into the moon if you want. We're going to put a face on that moon here in a little bit. So these trees are probably more in the background. I'll make that little fatter trunk there. Give it a little bit more character. And your trees don't all have to be so perfect. You want movement in your trees, so give it some crooked limbs and things like that. Overlap them. Okay, I've got these trees. I'm going to put this one this color. A little bit fatter trunk. It's coming up over these trees. You generally don't want to pull toward you when you're using a liner brush like I just did. Okay, now I want to take and add, actually I think I'm going to go right into this light gray mix. So let me get some water on my brush and pull some out. I just dirty brushed, I didn't clean my brush. Let me get some of this lighter gray. Now I want to wash my brush. I hope I had you on camera for that. I was just thinning the paint down like I did a second ago for that medium value gray. Okay, so we're going to put this one here in the front. This is not your typical silhouette. A lot of those are done with blacks. Okay, so you see how we're creating our depth there. Okay, let's go do these other ones over here. Touch more water. Give it a substantial tree trunk there, since it's quite a bit closer. I have to add a little more water to my paint. So when you make the tree limbs go up towards the thing in the center, it will draw your eye to that center. Okay, let's put this tree here that I drew. You don't have to have this many trees on yours if you don't want to. You can make less trees and just make them all more in the distant background if you want. I think I'm going to add just a tiny bit more of the warm white in with this. Since this one is the closest one, I want it to stand out a little bit more. Okay. That looks pretty good for our distant trees. Now we want to take this gray and I think I want to create some grasses in here. So I'm going to go with that medium value gray. Maybe add just a touch of that light in with it. Create some grasses in and around, especially in the background back there. You want to make sure those trees are, set. They're not just floating in midair. Or they don't have any. They need to be grounded, I guess I'm trying to say. Create some little grasses here and there. Okay. That kind of pushes everything back and sets everything right where it needs to be. Okay, let's make our face on our moon real quick. Let's see, let me find my pattern. So you can take your pattern and put it on here, trace your face if you'd like. Try and line it up with the circle that you drew there. My gray graphite paper. Okay, and you can make your face look any way that you want it to look. I see I've got this eye way a little more pointy than that eye, so maybe when I paint it I can adjust that. It's going to be wiggly because it's going to be kind of scary looking. So you can see the eyes on there. Okay, so we're going to paint the eyes in with black. I'm just going to use a round brush. We could just darken up that. In case black is a little too stark, we might just darken up this gray here. This medium gray, and make it like a dark gray. We'll see how that works out. So I just, dipped into the black and mixed it in with that dark gray, or that medium gray, to create a dark gray. Now these eyes are just jagged. I think we're going to have to go with black. I'm not sure this color is going to be as dark as I want it to be. Not quite the same size there. It's just a wiggling kind of back and forth. Just to get some jagged movement there. You can draw your pattern on and do it exactly like the pattern. It's, you know, it's Halloween. We don't have to be too. Just a wiggling, kind of a sawing back and forth. Just follow the shape. You want it to look scary. Scary happy, not just happy. Fill that in. Okay, so maybe I should trace my pattern better because I don't have the sides of my mouth the same width. By any means. Okay, oh, that's looking good. That's looking good. Okay, I want to put a quick second coat on this, so I'm going to mix a little bit more of that dark gray. Just going to coat in the middle. I'm not going to worry too much about all those little point wiggly things that I did. I think I do need a little bit more wiggling over here though. I like for my wiggles to be more pointy, if at all possible. I also like for my eyes to be the same size. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that because I know if I keep messing with it, it's going to, they're not going to be the same size or shape ever. But I'm happy with how it looks, so that's Pretty Scary Moon, I think. Alright, we're going to let the eyes and everything set right there for a little bit. We're going to go base in the house. I'm going to try a 4. I've got a 6 filbert here and see. It might be too big. It might be too big. So I think we're going to base the house in with black. So first of all, I didn't put my line down here for the bottom of the house. We'll come back and add some grass in here. So there's the bottom of my house. So I don't want to paint the windows in yet. So we'll just paint the house in with black. Water in my brush here. It's a tad bit dry. This brush might be just a bit too big, so I've got a lot more smaller places on here than I thought. I'm going to go to my 3 round. Painting fall things, Halloween things. I just love it all. It's one of my favorite seasons of all time to decorate for. I'll try to make our windows a little even there because they're kind of close. You can see them pretty well, so I don't want them distracting too much. draw this window in very good, but I can adjust it. Looking pretty good. I love those like ghostly trees in the background. It's so cool. Looking good. Okay, I'm going to take this brush. I'm going to leave the black paint on it. I'm just going to go right in to this dark gray here. This dark gray that I already had. Mixed the black on my brush, mixed with it, made it a little bit darker. I want this to be the roof. I'm still just using the 3 round, but you can go to a liner brush if you need to. I think I'll use the same color, maybe go into that medium gray just a tiny bit and create I want that to be darker. I want it to stand out that much. Go into the dark gray, create a little path here. Okay, I'm going to wash my brush off. I'm going to stay with this brush. And I want to go into the medium gray, so I'm going to have to mix a little bit more, which means it's not going to match perfectly, but that's okay. So I'm going to take this light gray and some black. And I want a medium shade of gray. So you see I've got a light gray, a medium shade, and a dark gray. Okay? And this I want to put on the windows, and I've got way too much paint in my brush, so I want to wash it out and reload it. I'm going to put this color in the windows. Try to keep our windows the same color. Did I say the same color? I mean the same size. Okay, let's do the door. I think that door I want to go darker, so I'm going to mix some black in with that and get to the more of a dark gray. A little bit of water. My brush is dragging there. Door needs to be a little taller. Okay, let's make some lines for our windows. I've got a chimney still that I need to make, so I'm going into the dark gray. You can just do straight black if you wanted. Some paned windows there. I think with the door I'm going to put a little window in it. get some pains in it. Doorknob on the door, whichever side you want it on. Maybe a couple little hinges. I'm going to streak some of this through the path. Need some lows and highs, so I'm going to go into the light gray. Okay, with black, so it's becoming medium gray. Too much water in my brush, so I don't want very much of this, but just a little bit. Okay, well, I've got this gray color on my brush, this kind of medium value gray. I'm going to put some grasses along the house. I'm pulling up. I'm just on the very, very tip of the brush. Chimney in there. We'll go with the dark gray like the door. Okay, I want to add a little bit of floating inside the windows. I'm going to do that with lamp black. I've got too many water drops over here. It looks like I need to fresh paint and fresh water out. Way too much paint on my brush. So I went and wiped it off. And just came back in here and started loading. I need a drop of water because I want this to be a washy float. I don't want it to be dark, dark, dark. Okay, so I want to go around, and it's too wide. It's going to take over the whole. So I prepped it off. Now I've just loaded it where it's barely on that tip. Around those windows. Needs to be just a tiny bit darker, I think. So I've got a tiny bit more paint on my brush. Oops. That looks a little bit better. Not as washy as I originally showed you. I took most of the water out of my brush. And I'm just using almost straight paint here. And I'll take the chisel edge and create some lines in the door. Okay. I'll add a little bit of this black. Some of these trees. I could actually shade a little bit on some of these trees back here, but it'd be kind of hard to do since I could do this one and this one. Since I've put those other trees in front. So I could add just a touch bit more of that. Might do that before. Okay, now let's see what I want to do with the eyes. Okay, I think I'm going to switch over to a 10 curved flat here. And maybe do a little bit of shading inside the mouth with lamp black. along the bottom. If you can go inside those points, that would be great. It's going to give your mouth that little bit more jagged shadow inside of it, make it look a little bit more scary. We'll do the same thing in the eyes. On the lower part. I'll have to go down and do the mouth again, I think. Just kind of a jagged back and forth. Outline there a little bit. Now you don't have to use a curved flat or an angle brush as big as I'm using. You can use something smaller if you like. Okay, now I'll go to that medium gray, actually the light gray. I'm going to float along the top of the mouth and the top of the eyes. Actually the eyes, I might just do this. Just stay more in the middle. I think it's a little bit up here. Sure, I'm liking the eyeballs in the eyes. So, I think I'll work those out a little bit. Take them way down. Just want a little bit in there. I don't want. I don't want those big circles in there. Just a little bit of a highlight to make it look like there's something back inside the moon. Okay, now I floated the outside with ultramarine blue here. But I think I'm going to take a little bit of the black. Now I will keep it extremely washy. And I'm going to add some blue to it and dirty up that blue. So I've got, well, I don't even have you on camera, sorry about that. I've got blue with just a little bit of black in there. So it's like a dirty blue. And I think I want to take this around the edge of this. And I need more paint. So I'm going to show up down there very well. So let me get a little bit thicker on my brush. Not worried about going out of lines because I'm going to be painting the outside edges with black. Starting to get a little bit dry in my brush. I ran out of water on my palette. Definitely need to get some more water drops on my palette. More black, I think. And Plus shading around this with some black, which I also did on the orange one at the end. I put just a tiny bit, tiny wash of black on there. Will help bring it into the background a little bit more. I really think my float needs to be a little bit wider. Too tight on the edge there. Definitely got to get more water. I'm going to walk it out just a little bit so that it comes in a little bit more. That so the edges aren't quite so stark. That is looking pretty good. I really like that. Okay, let me get some fresh black out here. We're going to paint the edges. Now when we paint the edges, we want to do all the sides. You can use whichever brush you're most comfortable with. I'm going to use a 12 flat. I'm going to try 12 flat and see how well I do here. Keep you on camera. I'm just going to go right up next to my circle. Now if you need to, if you've gotten too far out of the lines of your circle, take your circle maker and redraw your circles in. And that way you'll know exactly where it is that your lines need to go. Or your black needs to go, I guess. We'll paint the edges as well. We'll paint the edges, and then we will come about 1/4 of an inch on the back all the way around, because we're going to put cork on the back, but I don't want to put paint on the back because we're going to glue the cork down, and I want to make sure that the cork has something to really stick to. And the paint could make the glue not stick as well. And I sure wouldn't want your coasters to come apart after you work so hard on them. Okay, so I'm going to go get the rest of the black painted around this. Okay, we're getting ready to start this one. And before we start painting things in on this one, I want it to be a little bit brighter back behind this building, which I'm not really sure what this building is, just something I drew on here. But so I'm going to take my crescent brush and go into warm white, load it a couple times here, and back behind here I want this to be much brighter. We can go right up onto our lines. That's not going to hurt a thing. It looks very bright on the camera, I think, but in front of me here it's not very bright at all. Very light pressure. I'm giving hardly any pressure whatsoever. Now I'm giving a little bit more pressure because I can tell there's not much paint left in the brush. Okay, I think I'll go into my cad yellow and blend those two out just a little bit. I'm going to dip it twice because I want to get most of that white paint out of there. Okay, I think I'm liking that right there. Now, in case I didn't mention earlier, when you're using your scruffy brushes, if you've only got a couple to use, when you go to clean them out with some hand sanitizer and then rub them on a dry paper towel really well. Because the hand sanitizer will dry very quickly, then you can use this brush again, any scruffy brush again. If you rinse it out in water, they take a little while to dry, so you'd have to have extra ones, or just wait till it dries. So I wanted to give you that little tip. Okay, actually that light color, I need a little bit more of it. I want to put it where the windows are. So I've got a little bit of yellow in my brush still. So right where the windows are, I want to brighten those up with that lighter color. This one not so much down here. I'll put a little bit at the top, but it's more in the darker area, so we don't. That's the doorway, but it might have a window in it. I don't know. Haven't decided yet. All right, let's see my drawing. What I've done with my drawing here. So I've got some grasses and stuff in the background. This is going to mostly be a silhouette. So I'm not really sure about the pumpkins going in because I want it to be more of a silhouette. So we'll see how that works out. So if we're going to keep it a silhouette, we're going to go with lamp black. I'm going to use my 3 round. Okay, we're going with lamp black here. And we're going to base this house in. This is going to be like a silhouette. So I'm just using the 3 round brush here. Just going around everything right now, just outlining. We'll come back in and add the roof line. Put some water in my brush here. There's a extension of the house back here. A building. I'm not really sure what this is that I've drawn here, but it could be a church, I guess. I don't know. Okay, then we've got water. I don't know how well you can see, that's all draggy right there. Right there. So that means I did not have enough water in my brush. Now I'm painting these on each section separate so that I can see where my lines are when I come back in to add whatever it is I need to add. I may add some reflective light on this. I haven't decided yet. Okay, now we want to do the roof lines. Everything will be in black. You can use a liner for the roof line part if you need to. The roof down here. I'm just continuing with this round brush, but I'm staying up on the very tippy toe of it. Okay, let's do the kind of looks more like a church than it does a house. So we'll go with that. Okay, now we're going to paint this tree in right here. So, and it's just a big old tree, and these are the roots coming off of it. We'll add some grasses around that as well. Kind of fat down here. Okay, a little bit more water here. Take some of the paint out. I want to get a little bit more. A little bit more detail here. I'm staying up on the very tip of the brush. Now you can go to a liner brush if it's a little more difficult for you to stay up on the tip of a round brush, but if you've got your paint inky consistency, then you should be able to stay up on the tip of a good round brush the same as if you were using a liner. Okay, we need to bring some branches over and around. It doesn't have to be to be a spooky kind of looking tree. I need to fix the base here. I don't like that. You can create these more detailed lines by the pressure and the movement of your brush. Okay. More water. Went over and rolled my brush so I could get a little bit more. Okay, I think that tree is looking pretty fabulous. Door isn't straight here, I just noticed, so let me straighten that up a little bit. Oh, not like that. No siree. So I'm just going to take a damp brush and erase that. You can do it very easily while the paint is still wet. And just erase it right away. bit here and there. A little bit more water. I want this to be a little washy here. Just doing a quick second coat here. This is a pretty quick little project. Just making sure there's all the black is filled in. Okay, I want to take some black with my liner brush, and I want to create some grasses around the tree and on the horizon line back there. So back in here I'm using my liner brush. Now you could put some more trees in here in the background in the distance if you wanted. Just a tiny little flick of the tip of the brush. Your grasses can be as tall as you want them to be. Put some around the tree here. I haven't decided about those pumpkins yet. Some here. If you put them up next to the house, you've got to kind of put them away from the house a little bit, which is just perfectly fine. The church, whatever it is, put some down around in here. Put a little path, I think, coming from the church. Let me do the path before I go much further. I think I'm going to have to straighten up a couple of those windows there. Okay, I'm going to use the 6 curved flat to do this. And I'm just going to load a tiny little bit of black on the toe, a little bit more than that. That might be too much. Going off this way. Okay, we don't have to fill it in completely. It can be kind of spotty and give it some highs and lows. Okay, now I want that to be dry, and then I'm going to take some more of that black. Maybe not quite as washy this time. And I'm going to set everything here. Give it some weight. Make it not floating in air, so we'll give the grasses some I'm not going to worry about getting out lines. Okay, I want to take some more stronger black here. Along the edges of the path. Still just using that 6 curved. I just have paint on the very toe of it. Hope I had you on camera there. Just went along that path a little bit. I need to straighten up a window here. Looks a little crooked to me. This one. let's take some cad yellow. Let's see how this is going to work. I'm going to put some of this in the windows. I think I'll do a little bit more. Straight paint, not so much water. Put the yellow along the bottom. I guess we'll leave the door open, and I'll put a cross on the top of the building since we're going to make this one a church. I don't want to make that one too light, although it looks really light on camera. It's still pretty orange. I think on these lower ones we'll add a little bit of orange. Okay, then we're going to come back with some white, some warm white, pretty much straight paint, and we're going to go on the tops. Paint. If you get out of line, don't worry about it. The house is black, like I just did right there. So we can touch all that up. Okay, I'll get a liner brush and we'll put a little cross on the top of this. Quite the same length here. Much better. Alright, let me touch up around the windows with the black. Okay, if you want some window panes in your windows, we can do that. More water on my brush here. This is the 10-0 liner. The orange, we don't want that. Alright, while I've got this liner in my hand, I'm going to put some skinny little bats up here. Which they're just basically M's. Nice if I kept you on camera, wouldn't it? Okay, they all don't have to be little bitty. You can make some bigger ones on here. Okay. I'm gonna make one more big one on here. Give it a body right here. Give it some ears if you want. Make it look more like a bat. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of warm white and mix with this black. Make it a really dark gray. So I just dipped into my white. Now I'm mixing it with my black. Make it a little darker. I want to put just a little bit of detail on this tree. Not too much. And we can add some of those glows on here like we did on the pumpkin. Some oranges and stuff if you'd like. It's thin enough. Nope. If you've got it thin enough, you can make some little knots. On the tree like that. These are just some fun quick coasters. You could give them as a gift. Just fun stuff. I think I need to make one side of my path a little bit darker because it looks like it is leaning. Maybe I'll add a little highlight on that other side with some yellow. I just want straight paint. Don't really want a lot of water in my brush. Kind of a glow coming out the door there. Some of this on the tree. This is just that straight yellow. A little bit of an eerie glow to it. I like that a lot. I don't know if the glow's coming out of the church or if it's coming out of the sky, but that looks pretty good, I think. Okay, I need a little bit more dark underneath the house. I want to set that house a little bit more. So I'm going to go to the curved flat, some black. This underneath the house. I'll put it back here along my horizon line. Put some of my yellow back in there, it looks like. Cover up a little bit more of this orange, make it not look quite so bright down there. Just kind of tapped it in there and kind of walked it. Okay, I want to make sure that black is dry, because if I blend my yellow in with that black, it's going to look green. So I want to put some more yellow back on that path because I kind of covered it up. Do it all right there. Now my path doesn't look quite level again. Just adding some more of this yellow onto the tree. Just brightening it up. Okay, I'm going to try some black here. I'm going to use the same brush. I'm trying to make my path look like it's not going uphill here. Touching back with my finger, that's just softening it. I'm going to take a little bit of warm white, just brighten that yellow up just a tiny bit, just a little bit, not a whole lot, because I really like that yellow on there. I want it just a little bit brighter. That's looking pretty good, I think. Okay, I'm going to shade around the inside edge with a little bit, very washy lamp black. So that means I've got a lot of water. One reason I want a lot of water is to move it, make it move a little bit easier. And the other reason is it will keep my float soft. I'm not going to worry about getting out of lines. Really sets that one, I think. Okay, we've got our last coaster to work on here. I'll show you this one with the black on the background. There's the two orange ones, and then here's the one purple one. We're moving right along here. We've got one more to go. It'll be the sister coaster to that one. And this one will also be like a silhouette. We're going to paint a witch flying across the moon. Okay, so we're going to base the moon in with that. We probably want to do that same gray value. So we'll take some black and some warm white. Out on my palette here. Okay. Now I'm going to take some of the white out. Well, actually, yeah, I'll take some of the white out. I probably won't need that white, but I'll take this out just in case. I'm going to get a little bit of black on the tip of my palette knife. Mix mix it in with the warm white here. We want to get a light value gray. That's a very nice value there. Then I'm going to take some more black. I'm going to pull some of this out and make a little bit darker gray. I probably will have to mix more than what I'm mixing here. So I tell you what, I'm going to mix all that white in there so I can have a little bit bigger pile of light gray. Take some of that down to the medium value gray. And take some of that out. And add more black. More black. Darker value gray. Okay, so I've got 3 values of gray there. A light gray, medium gray, dark gray. Okay, we're going to start with the light gray and use our filbert brush. I'm going to use my size 10 filbert. I have paint all over my hands. Goodness, you'd think I'd been painting today. But I love it. Alright, we're going to fill this in with this light value gray. Now I'm using the filbert, remember, because I want to make sure I don't go outside my lines. I want to keep our moon a nice shape. If your brush drags in any way, it's going to cause you to go outside of the lines. You're going to get caught from the dragging of it. So you probably in that case need to add a little bit of water. To your paint. If you have a circle stencil and you have one that is this size, you could use that. I do not have a circle stencil. Don't know if they even make them. But that would be handy. I need to get up to my line here. I'm not quite up to it. Get more paint. Oh, wobbly there. A wobbly line down there. I don't know if I can clean that up and fix it or not. Okay. Not quite up to my edge here. If you're not to your line and all the way around the circle, you're going to look like you have flat spots. Okay, that's a lot of paint on that moon there. It's kind of splotchy, just like I like it. So, dry my brush off here. While it is wet, let's get some ultramarine blue out. Tiny little bit and some warm white. We could use the grays that we already had on our palette, but I want to bring some of this blue up into the project a little bit. So I've got some blue here. I'm just going to kind of tap some in random places, which is going to cover up most of this moon. Okay, my paint's a little tacky and I don't want to remove it with my finger, so I'm very gently brush. I've washed the paint off my brush, so it's just damp. Okay, that's much better. Dampen the paint, so now I can move the paint around a little bit more. Looks pretty good. Let's add a little bit of white. I got out of lines right there when I was patting that, didn't I? White eraser, very gently erase that. If you rub too hard, you will just remove everything. Alright, I'm just going to use this damp brush to gently blend this. I like to use my finger, but the paint is starting to dry, so it's getting a little tacky. And I don't want to remove paint. So, that's a nice little looking moon there. Alright, I am going to dry this. You've got quite a glare there, I guess because it's so wet. So let's get this dry. My little portable fan, available on my website. Comes with the batteries already in it. And you know how to tell if your paint is completely dry is that if it is no longer cool to the touch when you touch it. If it's still cool, it's not quite dry. Still pretty cool. Okay, while that finishes drying, I think down here on this hill, I'm going to take some ultramarine blue. I'm going to take some blue and a little bit of black. I just want to dirty up the blue, kind of like I've done on some of the other projects. I think the blue on the hill is a little bright. So I know I'm going to go over my trees, but that's okay. I want to take this down, tone it down just a little bit. I know it still looks bright on the camera, but it took it down, it darkened it down a little bit. Okay, let's see if that's dry enough. Okay, we're going to float inside the moon with that dirty blue that we just made. We want to keep it washy. Adding some more blue to it. We want to keep it very washy. I'm not going to dry brush around the outside of this one. I'm going to keep the moon. Don't really want to go outside my lines here. This is just a very thin, washy float. Take my mop brush. Into the paint that I painted on so I can soften it. Take it down just a little bit. Got a little stark edge there. I've got a little out of line edge here. Dip my little eraser in some water. I might cover that up with some trees, so we'll see. Okay, that looks pretty good for the moon. Okay, let's put our trees in. Now our trees are going to be put in with our gray values. So we're going to start with the dark value gray. I am thinning my paint to inky consistency. I added water. I'm pulling paint out and I'm thinning it to inky consistency because you want it to flow nicely off of your brush, and it can't do that if it's not the consistency of ink. Alright, I washed my brush out, dried it off. Now I'm going to load it into that inky paint. Okay, so I want to put some little trees back here in the background. So I'm just going to put these all along the hill back here. You can make them any size that you want. You don't really need a pattern for trees. Just the distant ones. So I might put a small one right back here. Okay, let's do the same over here. You want to wiggle your brush, stay up on the very tip. That's how you get those nice thin lines. Bring it up. It can go up and over the moon. That's perfectly fine. One back here. Okay, I'm going to take some of that lighter value gray. Actually, I might go into the medium value gray. I'm going to put a little bit of this medium value gray if I can get it the right consistency. Just along these back trees back here. Give them just a hint of highlight. Okay, now we want to thin down the medium value gray. We're going to create some trees more closely. And they will have a much bigger trunk. These still aren't the closest trees. I'm still going to put some a little bit closer. Just like on the, which one did I do with trees? This one. You want your trees to, it's okay if they go over another tree. Makes it look more real that way. Okay, I'll just add a couple over here on the side. Let's see where our witch is going to be. There. Okay, I'm going to put a couple of these back in here. Putting out paint on my brush there. wait and put the last trees after we get the witch in. Actually, I think I might put a couple back in here. Some small ones. I'm going to add some grasses and stuff in here, so I just want it to look like there's a lot of trees here. Like it's a forest almost. Dead trees. Forest of dead trees. Okay. More over here, I think. And we're going to add trees on top and everything. I just want it to look like there's a lot of trees going on back here. So you can just go back in here and just add some random limbs or grasses and things back in there. Alright, let's get our witch transferred on here. She's mostly going to be a silhouette. Okay, I can't quite tell what going on back here. Have to use some white. Oops. I'm just going to use some white just right back here. So I can see where. Not really sure that helped. I don't know how much of the witch you can see. Go with that. Okay. Let's start with our round brush, which is a 3 round, and our lamp black. And we're going to start by basing in her hat. Basically outlining with the brush. And I'll go fill it in. Okay, I'm going to do her dress or cape. Oh, way too much water in my brush there. I can't really tell from my pattern up here where my lines are. Fill this in. Kinda looking like a witch, I think. Kind of looking like a witch there. I might highlight on the very front edge of her face. Just some warm white, straight paint, no water in your brush. Paint's starting to dry up a little bit here. Just along the front edge here, just a little bit. Just tiny, tiny bit. I think her nose needs to be a little bit bigger. Okay, I want to take the liner brush and some black, some thinned black, get all the water off my ferrule here, and I want to create more raggedness coming off of the back of her. To be so perfect looking. So. Not quite as raggedy as I would like, but we'll go with that. I'm going to take the purple. Go along this edge here. Back along the hat again. A bit brighter. A bit more on the back of the cape. A little bitty highlight on the hat band. I'm going to take warm white. Hopefully I have just a small amount. The center of her hat. Back to back float. Where you just do it down the center, and then you flip it over, and you go down the center again, right beside the one you just did. Water out of my brush. Touch that up right there. Shade underneath that. I think our witchy poo is looking pretty good. Yeah, I'm not sure I like that sleeve, but it is what it is. It's the front edge that's bothering me of that sleeve. Maybe I do need to make that black instead of purple. I think I might have made her sleeve a little bit too long, but I'm going to put some trees in there now. Alright, go back to my round. Okay, I'm really loving the colors of this one. Alright, we're going to go into our medium value gray. I want to put some bigger trees in here. I got too much water in my brush. Flying through the forest. Just having a good old time. Okay, we're going to the light value gray now. Put a tree over here. And when you need to thin your light colors down, remember to go into your clean water. You go into your dirty water. And you're just going to dirty up your light paint. A little bit of trouble here with this one. One here. I think I want it to be a background tree. Okay, I think I'll get a little bit of warm white. And have a little bit of highlight on this tree. Tad on this one. Alright, I want to come in here with the liner brush and the grays, create some grasses. Thin my paint down. I want to create some grasses in here around these trees. Okay, she's zippity-doo-dah right across that moon. Alright, let's float some black, a very washy float of black. Washy means it's going to be at least 80% water. I'm using the 12 curve flat because I want a nice wide float on here. Take my mop brush, I'll soften that all the way around. I think it's looking pretty good. So let's get the outside edges of it painted black. Did all the others, and then a 1/4 inch around the back side, and then we'll be ready to put our cork on. Okay, we've got to add some bats on here, and that's an optional thing. If you don't want to add them on, then you don't have to add them on. On my pattern here. Oops. So on my pattern, I put like 3 bats on here. So we'll give it a body, some ears. Over here. Oops. Mess that wing up. Just about messed it up. Just fatten it up a little bit. Body. Okay, we've got our 4 coasters painted. I have not varnished mine yet. I will do that later. I want to get on to putting the cork on the back. So what I did was I took my cork pieces and I laid them on here and drew around them. So now I want to cut the cork into my squares, and I'm going to cut just inside of the line that I drew, because I want it to be a little bit smaller than my coaster, so that when I glue it, it won't be overlapping anywhere. So I'm cutting just inside the line. Now I might have to cut it a little bit smaller than this, but it's a start. Okay, let's see how this is going to fit on here. I don't want it to hang over the edges anywhere, and I didn't cut that straight at all, but We'll get the job done. Let me trim this side a little bit. Need to trim a little bit more off of this side, it looks like. And this side is still not straight. That's much better. Okay. I'm just going to get a foam plate here. And this is just some Type Bond molding glue. Any kind of wood glue will do just fine. So I'm going to squeeze some out here on my plate. Just a little bit, you know. It won't take a whole lot of this. I'm going to get me an old flat brush. Okay, now I want to paint this wood glue on the back of my, and it's thick. It's a thick glue. I'll put a little tiny bit of water in my brush. I don't want a whole lot because I don't want to thin this glue down. Okay, so I'm just going to apply it all the way. Pretty close to the edge, not completely to the edge, but pretty close because I want the cork to be sure and be glued, but we're going to put glue on the cork as well, so we'll make sure we get the edges really good. Just really put it on there. A little more glue than I expected. So let me squeeze a little bit more out. I want plenty of glue on the edges. I'm going to put some weight on this when I get it on the back. If you have another way that you like to apply your cork, then feel free to do it that way. This is just the way that I like to do it. My husband does a lot of woodworking, and I occasionally do woodworking with him, so pretty used to using the glue. So I want it to be on there really good. I don't want to have any glue on my hands if I haven't varnished it yet, because I don't want it to get on the front. So if you don't feel like you've got good adhesion on your glue and on your cork, which I think I've got pretty good adhesion because glue is coming out all around it, but you would want to put a heavy book or some kind of weight on this. Put it on something that's non-stick, like this mat that I have here is just a kitchen oven mat. And put a book or something heavy on it and let it set overnight. And by morning it will be dry and bonded and good to go. So that's how we put the cork on it. And then to varnish, I recommend using 2 to 3 coats of matte varnish. because they're coasters and you would have something wet setting on it, I highly recommend using 3 coats. So just apply it with a brush, nice smooth coats, lightly sand in between your first and second coat, and then your finished coat will be so smooth, unbelievably smooth. So that's how we're going to finish these off, and then your coasters are ready for Halloween. Thanks for painting with me.